Hello, everybody. This is part one of tonight's program. Now, this is new material, but is recorded at 5:40 Eastern, 4:40 Central Time, May the 21st. So, it's just part of the situation I'm in right now. Part two of the program, I'll have Jeffrey Deskovic. Remember, we had some conversations about the playoffs prior to the start of the second round. Now we're in the conference final games. He will be on for part two. We're going to record it here in just a few minutes, just between us. So, but this will be, of course, broadcasted at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. And of course, we'll replay it Friday. We'll play it Friday and probably Tuesday, not unless I can get some other interviews in. So, all right. By the way, I've got so much basketball stuff to cover. I'm aware of Brock Purdy has signed an extension, got an opinion on it. Talk about that tomorrow with the Mad New Yorker. Now, of course, as far as we know right now, the Mad New Yorker will be here. So we will get into Brock Purdy's extension. Also, Nick Sirianni signed an extension with the Eagles. Try to get into that tomorrow with the Mad New Yorker. So, okay, let's start off with, you know what? Let's do last night's game, and then we'll do a few thoughts on the Warriors, the Warriors Timberwolves. Okay, okay. Now, the Thunder kept Minnesota out of the paint last night. You know, Minnesota with Gobert, Naz Reid, a lot of size there, lot of size in the middle, extra rest. You think they would have the energy edge. They did early. Got a 9-point lead early. But astonishing stat here, folks. An absolute because if you just look at a team like OKC, they're so fast. They get so many shots. OKC and the Indiana Pacers both play at a higher speed than the rest of the teams left in the playoffs, a higher pace than from what I can see with the naked eye there. They play like teams that are both of them are young, ironically. They play like teams that are in the NCAA tournament, that kind of speed there. And it's hard to really catch how many points they actually get in the paint because there's so much pace there. I know they shoot the three ball as well, but 54-20. Yes, you heard that right. 54-20 points differential from Oklahoma City Thunder to the Minnesota Timberwolves in the paint, and they're playing at that high pace. You know, it looks like that this Thunder team has about 7 or 8 guys out there. You know, it's 5-on-5, right? Full court basketball, whatnot. It's 5 players on 5 players. But, you know, they're so fast, they're so athletic, and you kind of see this in football. When the Patriots really had their defense rolling back in the early 2000s for some of my younger audiences, led by guys like Willie McGinnis, really Ted Bruschi, 2002, those teams right there. You know, I would tell people just looking at that game, you know, it looks like the Patriots have like 12, 13, 14, 15 players out there. You know, it's 11 on 11, right? But they're so good and they're so fast, dynamic. The chemistry's so good. Average age, 23.9 years old. Now, SGA, by the way, congratulations. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has officially won the MVP today. I was okay with him winning it. Best team, best record, best player on the best team with the best record, and they are showing it, okay? 3 games away from getting to the to the NBA Finals, the youngest team ever. Yes, they're older than the other Oklahoma City Thunder, led by Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, that ultimately lost in 5 to the Miami Heat. But I made some notes here. Julius Randle played way over his head. 28 points there for Randall. Shot the three ball well. But, the truth of the matter is Minnesota, they've got to slow this game down. They're going to have to set more high pick and rolls. They're going to have to get the ball in the paint more, and they're going to have to play at their pace. They cannot play comeback against this team. This team has too many players that can come at you. And I will admit, I have not had a show to predict this series before it happened, but I will be honest with you. I would have picked the more experienced Minnesota team that was in the Western Conference last year. So I would have been wrong. It looks like now maybe they can make some adjustments here. They definitely have the talent to do so. They have the experience. You got some Mike Conleys on that. Rudy Gobert's 31 years old. You've got some players. Naz Reid is not a spring chicken, but he's in his prime. You've got some young players. You've got some older, more veteran-led players there. They can make adjustments, but it looks like, with all that rest right there, you think that maybe, just maybe, this is a Golden State thing where they lost game one in the other series, but that's a different situation. The Golden State Warriors were an older team. Their big three was 37, Steph Curry, 35 with Jimmy Butler, and of course Draymond Green. So, it looks like, I don't know, man. It looks like an uphill climb here. This could be a 5 or 6 game series in favor of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I would lean Thunder to win this series, although it could be wrong. Listen, this whole NBA the last few years, as a matter of fact, the last 7 years, we're going to set a record for the most different teams consistently winning the NBA championship. This goes all the way back to the 70s. And, of course, in the early 2000s, from 2003 to 2009, I want to say, we're going to have a different champion here. Parity has never been more. It's something about this apron thing. I know that it's like nothing to do with food to my heavier audience there. But anyways, this apron thing that's been established now with the new CBA that Adam Silver has worked out with the ownership and the Players Association, where teams simply cannot stack each other up. So now you're going to have another champion. Who would ever thought? Toronto, Milwaukee, Denver, Golden State. Just different teams every single year. Boston. So there's no dominant teams. I like this parity. It's like the NFL, like Adam Silver said. But it is what it is. We're on the verge of having a potentially youngest team ever to win the NBA championship, and it will be a different team, and they're smack dab in the middle of the country, and their name is not San Antonio. Pretty interesting stuff. Okay, quick take as far as Oklahoma City Thunder and Minnesota Golden State. I felt like I pretty much predicted that, like I said prior to the fact that when they played 2 or 3 older players, 35 plus. I will say this: I do believe that Bob Myers. Another reason why he really wanted to get away. Yeah, he didn't want to trade key players, but he knew really they had to blow this team up completely. And he was spot on. He got out at the right time. Now they have a new general manager there. I think his name's Mike Dunleavy, former player there. Steve Kerr basically says he'll hang around as long as Steph does. If you are a Golden State Warrior fan, you cannot like that at all. But that is what he has said. I've heard him say it the other day on his last press conference here. Personally, I would talk to Steph Curry. He is a staple in that organization. He's a Magic Johnson to what he was to the LA Lakers type of player. He's the best player that's ever played there. I would try to ask him, would he consider wanting to play for another team, maybe go to a championship contender, because they're going to have to really break this thing up. And I've heard maybe they go after a Giannis. But why would the Milwaukee Bucks want a Butler or an agent Draymond Green? Maybe Butler will move on elsewhere, and they'll keep Green and put some young guys around him. But Giannis, I would not want to go play for the Golden State Warriors. They're going to fall apart again. This thing's done. Steph, as much as I like Steph, as much as I like Kevin Durant, as much as I like Jimmy Butler, and LeBron should have retired last year. These 35-plus-year-old players, they need to be off the bench / role players, last players on the starting lineup. I'd prefer a guy like Steph to lead my second team off the bench on a championship. I don't know, maybe put him on a Houston or something, He should not be the lead guy. Maybe he comes off the bench and move off Westbrook. Maybe you bring him over there to Denver, come off the bench and work with Joker and those guys. Or maybe, work out something in the East. I would have that conversation. Now, if he didn't want to do it, I'd probably let him play it out. He's at the end of his career, Steph Curry. Let him play it out because he is a legendary player. He's made that organization billions and billions. He's upped the value of that organization's in the billions. He's a Michael Jordan to that organization type of player. Okay, so I think he's unique. Anybody else, Draymond, you move off him. I said move off him a couple of years ago. I'm spot on all this stuff. So that's my take on that. As far as I'm moving rapid fire because I'm going to try to hurry up and get this. I'm going to try to hurry up and get this interview in with my man Jeffrey Deskovic. Not really an interview, more of a back and forth, a discussion there into the next round. Here's my take on the Knicks Pacers. Going to be a good series, probably a 6 or 7 gamer. Last year in the playoffs, Knicks had the edge. Remember, they won the crucial game 5 and simply fell apart. So you really hope that this year, now, of course, last I checked, there's no D's or Q's, no doubtfuls, no questionables, none of that stuff on this Knicks and Pacers, this Knicks depth chart, unlike, Cleveland, who had Darius Garland injured before the series started. But last year, remember, everybody got hurt. Even Brunson got hurt at the end. The whole thing just fell apart at the seams there. But remember, they won Game 5. Let's go back 1 year. To the second round. The Knicks won Game 5 last year, and of course, they were up 3-2 in that series. And then the players started to fall apart, and ultimately, in the 7th game, we know what happened. The Pacers end up winning this thing and moving on to the next round. But that being said, I do like this Knicks team in 6. This would be a big win for Tom Thibodeau. That would put the New York Knicks in the finals for the first time since 2000. But I like this series. This series reminds me more of the 95, the hype of 95, not the 2000. Were they in the finals in 2000? Oh, excuse me. The last time they played was in 2000. This would be the first time they've been in the finals since 99 against the San Antonio Spurs. And, of course, they lost that game. That was the the holdout or lockout season, if you all recall. Some of you older audiences, 2000 was the last time the Pacers and the Knicks played in the conference finals. Ultimately, the Pacers won that, but they ultimately lost to the Lakers there. Lost to the Lakers in 5, really good Laker team there in 5 in 2000. So I'll stand corrected. But going back to this series, I'm very excited. I'm going to be driving Uber here in a little while. But I have recorded, and I'm going to watch every minute of it because I know it's going to be great. A lot of nostalgia. Knicks only have 1 game extra. 1 more game. Better record. They're 51 and whatever. They have 1 game edge, so they're going to have home court advantage against the Indiana Pacers. This is going to be a great series. I cannot wait to see it. But I do think they're going to move on in 6 games. But it will be dramatic as usual if they stay healthy. And if you're a Knicks fan, you got to just knock on wood and hold your breath there. Okay? I wanted to get to this big story. This thing kind of blossomed, man. I tell you what, the people outside of this WNBA situation is making it bigger and bigger and bigger as far as Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I heard about the matchup, last Saturday's matchup, last Friday. So I recorded it, I recorded the matchup because I knew it'd be pretty good. And sure enough, it was good. 2.2 million views. By the way, the viewers for this Sky, I never knew what the Sky was, other than the one we're looking up at, right? But the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever, I didn't know who they were until they drafted Caitlin Clark. But when they got, well, I know them now. And they played Saturday. Great win there for the Favorites. Opening night, tip-off, opening night in the WNBA. And you heard it right. Their ratings were higher than NBA regular season games. Yes, you heard that right. Okay. So, anyways, going back to that game, a lot of talk about it was a take foul. You know, when a take foul is you see a player going right towards the basket and a player for the other team, it's a wide open layup. You just kind of grab them. That's it. It's a foul. It's over with. Angel Reese falls down. It gets called a flagrant. It wasn't really a flagrant, but they called it a flagrant. A lot of boos and everything, yada, yada, yada. Indiana wins in a blowout. I was very surprised they actually won like that. But, you know, Reese had great numbers. Caitlin Clark, triple-double. But everything comes after the fact there. Angel Reese jumps up, acts like she's going to fight her over a take foul. So she calms down, and, you know, there's a lot of boos coming in later. And this is very common, you know. Hey, there's always some racial accusations. I think she realized she looked bad in that situation. All of a sudden, there's racial comments aimed at her. Just like a few weeks ago when Draymond Green was, and he did flagrant foul that player there, going back to the Minnesota game. He did foul that guy. It was a flagrant. And he or it's technical, and it was like his fifth, and two more, he would have got a suspension. They got beat anyways. But then you hear later when he was on the bike that somebody made racial comment. Yeah, so here, just look over here. Don't realize what kind of jerk I am. Just here, that's a car. Let's shoot. I know it's all bent up and banged up, the racial car, but let's go ahead and play it anyways. I don't care. But anyways, so aftermath of that. Coming into this week, Monday, today's Wednesday, you get guys like Robert Griffin III on his show, podcast or whatnot. He says she hates Angel Reese, hates Caitlin Clark. Now, he says, hey, listen, I'm talking about basketball. I'm not talking about – and he did not say anything personal like she's wanting to beat her up or something. But, man, boy, she really hates him. And so Ryan Clark of ESPN, still employed by ESPN, comes out and takes all these shots at Robert Griffin III and basically saying that Robert, who's a black guy, his mom's black, saying that since Griffin's married to two white women, that he don't understand how black women feel and all this stuff, and just very personal and just flat out racist comment that he continues to get away with. And then, a firestorm over the X out and the internet goes off, and, there's a lot of, people taking sides and everything. And this thing blows up again. It's great for the game, though. It's hype. It's hype for the game. A lot of people. So I'm actually recording the next games. I think it's two more. No, three more. I want to say they play three more times. I'm recording all these things. But on a serious note about this, I got to reading about. I didn't get time to download all this stuff. But basically, what Ryan Clark said was so over the top and so blatant about Griffin that at minimum, ESPN, even though it was not on ESPN Airways, at minimum, ESPN just suspended Ryan Clark for that. And of course, the cowards did not. They did not suspend him, And I say all that because, ironically, Robert Griffin, going back to 2013, Rob Parker made some similar comments about, not about his wife, but some offensive comments about Robert Griffin III, Rob Parker, black guy, now this was on ESPN Airways, calling him a cornball brother. Now, he had been married to a white lady. There were some undertones there from Rob Parker. And ESPN stepped in 2013 he was suspended for 30 days, Rob Parker. This goes back a while, 12 years, and his contract was not renewed, So why didn't they do this to Ryan Clark? Because ESPN, I would say they just got a bunch of cowards running this place. And, I look at this and I feel like this stuff has been out of hand. It's getting out of hand. And the only way you can really start the healing in this country for stuff like this is you got to hold people accountable of all racial comments, And I'm a First Amendment absolutist. Don't get me wrong. First Amendment absolutist, okay, when it comes to this. But that doesn't mean that you're withhold for criticism or you cannot get suspended by your employer. I don't think the government should throw anybody in jail. You can say whatever you want to. Can you imagine if it was the other way around and it was a black guy and a white? So my whole point about all this is you've got to hold all people of all races, not just everybody but one, not just everybody but the black. And you listen, in the defense of my of a lot of black people out here, I see this. I see it on TikTok. In black racism, and you guys know, and it's wide open out there. It's especially on ESPN. I mean, Kenneth Perkins, Ryan Clark, even Stephen A. Smith. They look for the racial angle on everything, and it's always offensive to white privilege. That's offensive, So you got to hold everybody accountable. You can't just leave them out. Okay, you got to hold everybody accountable for their actions. No canceling, But I just don't see, if you're going to say something that deeply offensive, you got to be across the board. You can't just pick and choose. You cannot pick and choose that. But if ESPN wanted to clean this thing up, I said on the X app, if ESPN did not have the contracts for these sports, the Major League Baseball, the big college football, and ABC and everything, they would be off the air. They would be off the air. Nobody would watch their sports talk. I fast forwarded when they got the games. I fast forwarded through their halftime show. I haven't wanted to hear nothing they got to say because all they want to do is because I know what a lot of their personalities are about. They want to push those agendas and whatnot. So you got to hold blacks accountable just like you would a white person or an Asian person, a Latina person, if they're saying something about another race or whatnot, and say, hey, listen. We should not allow this on our airways. We should not allow it. You got to be across the board here to start the healing of this. Now, I understand we've got political opportunists who've been doing this for years and race hustlers and all this stuff. But I could see a lot of people going back to friends and not necessarily friends, but I see people on TikTok, young black men and women, not just men, are speaking out against the black racism in this country. Blacks being racist against other people, and I appreciate that. I see stuff called black fatigue, and these are not white; these are blacks talking against these black races, and there's no other way to put it. And a lot of my audience is black, and I've talked about these things before, and they've still remained my friend, and I appreciate that because they know I keep it real, and I'm coming from a good place here. I just think everybody should be held equally accountable. And I wish I had Clark's comments here and I would play them in context, but basically he took a shot at Robert Griffin's wife, basically saying that you have no credibility because you buried a black woman, a white woman, so a black woman. I mean, it's just cutting as possible. Of course, Griffin came back and said, hey, listen, keep my family out of this, man. I was just talking sports, basically. I feel bad for you. So he took the high road and whatnot. And I noticed that guys like Le'Veon Bell came at former Steeler, who used to also play with Ryan Clark, came after Clark as well. And Le'Veon Bell said the guy blocked me. He blocked me on the X out, former running back there. And Le'Veon Bell also let everybody know that he ran over Ryan Clark in practice. And probably did. He's a big guy. Le'Veon Bell's a pretty big guy, tough guy. But anyways, in ESPN, you want to clean up, start getting rid of people like that who push this constant racial divide and tension there. You know, at some point, it's got to come to a stop here to start the healing of stuff like this. But anyways, I thought I would mention that. Folks, we're over the time that I actually wanted to do this. Man, 25 minutes. Wow. So stand by for part 2 of the program. Part 2 of the program, I'll be talking the playoffs, the Final Four with the great Jeffrey Deskovic.